here and trying to start yet another stream here. This week is only on the second day's worth, and damn it, we're looking for something to finally start happening here. I apologize for the frustrating potential issues that you guys continue to see as we continue to try and start this stream and have it work in a normal way, but it just didn't, absolutely would not work. And I don't know why. I'm trying to figure this out. Maybe it will. Maybe I'm just talking and then maybe it'll kick in and everything will be wonderful. Maybe, maybe at some point, possibly, outside chance. I don't know, but it looks like probably not. You had me earlier at E99ST. You saw me because I didn't see you guys seeing me. I'm talking right now. Let me know if you see me talking right now about how frustrating this whole thing is. If so, maybe it's just what I'm seeing on my side is not what you guys are seeing on your side. Just a little test run, just to try to get something started, even though we're 9 minutes in to this whole thing. It doesn't appear that way. It does not appear that way. Jesus, man, this is so frustrating. Um, Hi, it's working. Hi, hi. Someone says it's working. Only good can happen if you're there. Do you guys see me on YouTube or do you see me only on Twitch? Because that was actually the different thing that was supposed to be happening. And now it's not even happening there. Oddities in this world on this particular day. You can see and hear me, says Bubba Franks. Where do you see and hear me, Bubba? Do you see and hear me on YouTube? Because I don't see nor hear me there. That's not what I'm seeing, Bubba. But I hope the experience that you're getting is what hopefully others will be getting. Are you getting me right here, right now? Who knows? Ah, we're working on it. There's a whole other chat and a stream with no video. Yeah, well, that looks like that's this one too. No, actually, no. You guys are not seeing it. Just that's what I thought was happening. Because I'm not seeing it either. This is one confusing situation. I'll tell you that much. I will tell you that much. Yeah. Looks like we're in for another restart, you guys. I am on YouTube. Or do you see me on YouTube though? Because I don't see that. I don't see that happening, you guys. I don't see it happening on YouTube. I got to be honest. I'm seeing it right here. Brums 1224 says, "Yeah, we're live. Are we? I don't see it. I just want to make sure because there's a lot I have to say, and I don't want to say it to a blank screen. Had me and lost me. Still not yet. Dexter Wong says, "Yay." On YouTube now? Well, let's get started. Why not? Let's go ahead and get started. Since you guys are all watching me and see me and I don't see me, I have some kind of issue on my end. The important thing is that you guys have me here. Okay, the first time there, Jason Stanley. I appreciate you guys' help in navigating through all this. It is quite madness, I have to point out. So if you guys want to assist and help me out a little bit here with a little bit more of the positive vibes, go ahead, like the stream, even though nothing has happened yet. I mean, if you can like the stream, that is if you're on the stream that I'm on right now, because there's been like 3 or 4 of these already this morning that decided to start, fail, fail, start, fail, and then pause. Let's see if we can move on. Okay. See me loud and clear. Let's get started then, you guys. I only got a limited amount of time. So many things to talk about. I want to jump into things that a little bit more of an elaboration of things that I was looking to get to yesterday. That is our TSA agents dealing with the issues of not being paid. I'm not sure if that's being taken care of just right now, specifically as Congress says they're getting close to a deal to maybe start funding more folks. But as that's going, as we know, ICE agents have invaded many airports. I believe they said about 13 major airports across the country. And their job apparently is to terrorize people, as I also pointed out yesterday. But outside of terrorizing people, there's just a general idea of terror from these particular ICE agents because what they are is, as I think we've mentioned before, cowards. Did you film that? ICE agents hanging out at airports, but apparently running, even though they're the guys who say they're the badasses that are all in charge. A couple of cameras, all it takes is a couple of cameras and a couple of faces for to then be revealed before they tuck tail and run like the cowards that they are. I thought these are a bunch of badasses that Donald Trump put in his personal military to come and harass everyone in the country. Instead, what we're discovering is that, first of all, they're scared of the American people, which is why they're attacking us. But then, number two, they do nothing while they're at the airports anyway. Watch this.
So I'm at JFK Airport, where today ICE agents were sent in to help with the long TSA lines because TSA workers aren't being paid. And this is what they're doing. Absolutely fucking nothing. While this TSA agent, God bless her, handles the entire line, they stand here doing nothing. Got a few more.
Good job, guys. Good work.
Literally, this woman is handling the entire TSA line. Well, 4 different ICE agents stand and watch her. We got some backup. To do nothing. Break time. Our day at work. I actually can relate to you guys in the sense that when I worked retail, I also walked around a lot while doing nothing to convince people that I was working. Well, at least I can sleep easy, knowing that this airport finally has armed bathroom attendants. Snack time. Tough day on the job. So lines are the exact same length they were before, and we've replaced the people who actually knew what they were doing with untrained armed Gestapo. We did it. We made airports great again.
Matt XIV there, walking through the airport, noticing how little that these TSA agents are, no, not TSA agents, these ICE agents are actually doing as they're there, as according to Tom Homan said the other day, to assist TSA agents, considering they're not getting paid, considering they're overworked, considering that they're short-staffed, because so many folks probably can't even make it into work, considering that they're not getting paid for, as they said, over a month now. So they hang out. They sit back. Guess who is getting paid as they sit down, hang out, and watch TSA agents actually do their jobs that they were always doing. And at the same time, every once in a while, they may catch a brown person that they think just might have a little bit too strong of an accent. So then they go and start attacking that particular brown person. It's almost like the TSA has to do all this work, and ICE agents are still doing their same work of harassing Americans. Odd how that works. Whose idea was it to do this in the first place? Americans don't like this.
Thank you very much.
Whose idea was that to put ICE at the airport?
We're dealing really.
Whose idea was it?
Mine. That was mine.
Can I ask you?
That was like the paperclip. You know the story of the paperclip? 182 years ago, a man discovered the paperclip. It was so simple. And everybody that looked at it say, why didn't I think of that? ICE was my idea. First person I called was Tom Homan. I said, what do you think? He said, I think it's great. Then I saw today there was some masks on. I didn't think the masks were appropriate. I put out a statement and I asked them, would it be possible to take off the mask? Because they should wear a mask when they're dealing with the murderers and the thugs let into our country.
You said there's many points of agreement.
I mean, he's letting us know at least. Donald Trump says it was my idea to put ICE agents in these airports. It was my idea to put these folks in these airports to sit around, lean around, do nothing except make things even worse. Maybe crowd the area some more. Maybe cause a disruption and attack folks like they were doing at San Francisco. That is even the night before they announced that they would be unleashing all these folks into these airports. It's, and when he tells this stupid ass story of a paperclip from 182 years ago, did you hear about the paperclip? And how he thinks he has the best ideas ever. You can't even really believe that. It was probably someone else's idea. They told Donald Trump, hey, this is going to make you look better, considering everyone is now coming down on your stupid ass, considering this war that you started. That is after you started the war, when everybody came down on your stupid ass over the pedophile behavior that we keep seeing getting exposed in those Epstein files. It's weird how we keep seeing things get covered up for the sake of making things worse and making us forget the last thing that you were covering up that was, worse as well. I feel like one of the people that's probably one of the main folks who think these things through and probably suggest to Donald Trump, hey, say it's your idea, but in reality, in throwing these ICE agents into airports to stand around and also harass people is something we want to make normalized for our country. Here's this guy, Steve Bannon.
One question: I want the mainstream media's head to blow up today. We can use what's happening with these ICE helping out at the airports. We can use this as a test run, as a test case to really perfect ICE's involvement in the 2026 midterm election, sir.
Yeah, I think we should have ICE agents at the polling places, because if you're an illegal alien, you can't vote, right? It's against the law. It's a federal crime for you to vote in federal elections. And so if you're an American citizen, you should be happy that ICE is there, because you're not going to have illegal aliens canceling out your vote.
One question I want the mainstream media.
As what they've always done, from campaign season to when his ass was out of office to then now the time that he's back in office, they tell us their complete and utter story. You know, we always watch those old, cartoons or old cheesy movies when the bad guy is sitting behind the desk and he's plotting all of his schemes to go against the good guys. And he always tells them their plans. I was like, what in real life situation would the ultimate bad guy be telling you all of their plans? I guess it's these guys. From the beginning, he also said he was going to start unleashing folks in the streets and attacking American citizens. And for some reason, we didn't believe him. Now, again, he's got his personal army in our airports, harassing people and also doing nothing except eating Cinnabons or something, all for the sake of, as Steve Bannon pointed out there, to normalize the presence of ICE agents in all of our lives, just like they're trying to do in our cities. They're trying to normalize it so that when these upcoming elections, which they know they would get their asses handed to them in, they need some intimidation factors, illegal intimidation factors, because it's obviously illegal to post intimidating folks hanging out with long guns to tell people, are you supposed to be voting here? No, I don't think you're supposed to be voting here. Here, let me check all of your papers. Yet again, the normalization of this is full front and center. But while they're still not paying these TSA agents and they are paying these ICE agents and acting like we're not paying all of them, what's actually happening is now we have this same debate that we continue to have when it comes to just in this case, the partial shutdown of this government. Ron Johnson is too stupid to realize that people know how this is going.
Democrats that have caused this shutdown is Democrats that are preventing TSA agents from being paid, and the media does not hold them accountable.
The president's now saying, don't reopen that last bit of the government to fund DHS. And I just always like to point out ICE is already funded through the big, beautiful bill. So that should be off the table. But he doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want you all to make any agreement unless you can pass the Save America Act.
Is Martha McCallum and Fox News part of that dirty government that refuses to tell you the real truth about whose fault it is? Because right after Ron Johnson said that, Martha McCallum, who usually carries the water pretty well for the administration, she couldn't help it, I guess, or she had this bout of, but reality keeps showing up right in front of me, and she had to point out Donald Trump openly said it was me. I did it. I told you guys to make sure you don't negotiate this at all because I need that SAVE Act to pass because I still suck at this. I'm still going to get my ass handed to me in these upcoming elections. I need to find anything I can to make sure that we rig this in a certain way that we disenfranchise as many voters as possible because it's obvious the vast majority of the American people want nothing to do with us. Here's an example of that.
It's definitely the Republicans because they won't negotiate with the Democrats at all, just like this war. Now we're in a war. Why? Because that's what President Trump wanted. And think about America going bankrupt because he's well on his way to us going bankrupt.
Callers from C-SPAN from Georgia, even they know. I'm not sure if it's been an overplay or an underestimation, which maybe it's not even underestimating American people, but underestimating or overplaying their hand when it comes to how much they think they can just blatantly get away with. And the more and more they destroy people's lives, people are forced to pay attention to what's happening. The numbers of people that are having to fly know the situation. They're living it. And when they see ICE agents parading through the airports, it's nothing that they're comfortable with. Even if they said, I voted for this, well, after they hem up and snatch your, daughter from your arms, I feel like they won't really be for this anymore. But then again, that was just some random country ass caller from Georgia saying reality about the situation. Maybe we should listen to this fake country ass guy from Louisiana confirm it for us.
Senator Cruz and I came up with a plan. We said, look, it's a two-step process. The Democrats have offered to open up everything but ICE. Ted and I said, okay, let's accept their offer. And then at the same time, we would offer a bill for reconciliation where we don't need any Democratic votes to do whatever we wanted to do with ICE. And that way we're out of the shutdown and DHS is back open. We submitted that, Senator Cthulhu submitted that to President Trump, as is his right. He said no deals with the Democrats. It would have worked. We could have had TSA paid by the end of the week, but the president said no deal.
The president said no deal. Senator John Kennedy pointed out they had a plan in place, which, by the way, I don't even like that plan that they had in place, because as I heard yesterday, there was way too many Democrats that were signing on to this plan where they could pass just enough of this partial government spending now to end this partial government shutdown. But one of those parameters, again, what I just heard yesterday, maybe that's been changed, but I doubt it, was that they would then start allowing them to go forward with these searches, these breaking into people's homes without a judicial warrant. That's what Democrats were ready to sign on to, by the way. But Donald Trump was not ready to sign on to because, again, all he's now moved on to is caring about trying to save his own ass when it comes to these upcoming elections, or I guess all of his minions' asses that keep kissing it in order to continue to enable him to destroy this country. So we've heard from a caller from Georgia. Don't believe her. Maybe you heard from that John Kennedy down in Louisiana. Don't believe him. Maybe this time, despite the fact that he said it all the time on the campaign trail of all the destructive things he was going to do, maybe listen to the guy who's doing it himself one more time.
And I'm suggesting strongly to the Republican Party, don't make any deal on anything. The most important thing we can have is what's called the Save America Act. Don't make any deal on anything unless you include voter ID, and you have to be a citizen to vote. You have to show citizenship to vote. Very easy to do. It's very insulting when they say people can't do it because they don't know how to do it. Anybody that can't do it, I think it's a very insulting thing to say. The Democrats are fully to blame with the struggle the great American public is going through at the airports. They're going through a big struggle right now, and we just put ICE in charge, and they're helping TSA, the agents.
It was almost like the same sentence. It was really close to being the exact same sentence where he had two different competing thoughts. It's the Democrats' fault for all this. He says right after pointing out, I just told them no deals with Democrats. I just told them don't do anything when it comes to funding the folks at these airports, which are causing all these backups, which are causing all this chaos. He points out it was him right before saying, and it's the Democrats. I mean, it's almost like we deserve the chaos, the destruction, because he's not lying to us. He could easily come back after people finally get outraged, the few that trickle in to figure out how devastatingly ridiculous this guy is, and then say, how could I have seen this coming? He could easily say, because I told you this was coming, because I told you I was going to destroy this country, because I told you I was going to implement a militarized personal army to come and attack you, snatch folks away from their kids, and then also leak that into the airports. And then as I suck and my numbers continue to dwindle, then I'm going to unleash them onto airports, and I'm going to make things worse there too. So speaking of airports, since we're making things worse, what a time for something like this to happen. Did you guys see what happened at LaGuardia Airport? I believe it was overnight, Sunday night into Monday morning. It was still dark out, at least. I'm not sure the exact hour. But there was a devastating crash, a very fatal, devastating crash that happened on that runway. If you haven't seen it, this is video of that event.
Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. That's crazy.
The plane just tilted back. It was on the ground on the nose. As you're deplaning, it just lifted in the air. Holy.
So as you saw there, an Air Canada airplane collided with a fire truck that is on the runway, a direct T-bone hit. And as I pointed out, it was a fatal accident. Both the pilot and the co-pilot passed away in that accident. And also they said about a dozen or dozens of passengers were also injured one of those passengers got the opportunity, and I'm sure there's many of these videos potentially going around of their own look at this, but one of those passengers did speak, I believe it was with ABC News, about what he experienced, what he saw, how that crash felt from his perspective. It's a scary situation.
We were coming in pretty fast. It was like a regular flight, like always. But as we were arriving, we came down really hard, and then we stopped really quickly, and then in about 2 seconds later, we just had an absolute like slam. Everybody was flying everywhere. I mean, like the plane started veering off left and right, and there was, I mean, it was chaos. I mean, it didn't feel like there was anybody in control of anything, and. But looking back on it, the pilot did the best thing he could. He hit the brakes as hard as he could, and he knew it was going to be at the cost of his own life. We were coming.
So, I mean, we always, airplane travel is so common now. No one thinks any of these things could happen. You hit a little bit of turbulence, you may get the seatbelt light on, and there's still people maybe milling around like it's just an airplane. You never know when things could be as bad as they got, even on the ground. And I think especially at landing and things like that, at least everyone's most likely buckled in. I don't think anyone else was milling around at that point. But when you get this huge crash that happened as they T-boned with this fire truck that was on the runway, questions began to get asked. But also, even as this I guess airplane crash analyst over on CNN pointed out, it could have actually been much worse. Sadly, as they point out, it did claim the lives of those two pilots. But as he's saying here, I guess they got a little bit lucky.
I want to show you and our viewers images and the video shot by a passenger on the plane, Jack Cabot. The passenger took these images from the tarmac. As you can see, he and his fellow passengers had just made an emergency exit. These still images show the extensive damage from the impact. The plane's nose completely obliterated. The fire truck looks like it had exploded. What stands out most to you?
Well, you can see clearly that the damage to the front of the nose is so significant. It's about 25 to 30 feet of the front part of the aircraft is missing. So because that's gone, you can see that the aircraft goes from a nose down position to a nose up position, just because the weight behind the wheels is more than what's in front of the wheels now. So you can see that it's changed and moved up forward. So one of the things that really strikes me is that because that aircraft hit directly in the middle of the fire truck was moved forward and the aircraft was damaged in the nose. This could have been much, much worse, Wolf. Had that truck been 40 feet further or 40 feet back, then that it would have struck against the wing, the fuel cells, the engines, and would have created a huge fire and would have had many, many fatalities. So as tragic as this is for the two that we've lost, there could have been much, much worse. And just out of pure luck, that airplane hit in the middle of that fire truck and reduced the number of fatalities significantly.
Reduced them from passengers, but as I pointed out, did take the lives of those two pilots there. And as the passenger also pointed out, he did all he could at the last seconds of his life. It's a sad situation. So, of course, in these situations, the next question is, how did this happen? Why did it happen? How can we prevent it from happening? But I feel like the third question isn't really one that this administration really likes to take any stock in. But still, let's at least get a couple answers to some of these questions. What is it that went down? But also, what was air traffic control trying to figure out as this crash happened?
And that wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know. I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
One of the things the National Transportation Safety Board is going to want to try to understand here was controller workload, because what we hear on the air traffic control audio mainly is one voice, one controller who appears to be handling everything that's going on the ground at LaGuardia. And as that Air Canada flight was coming into land on runway 4, on the other runway, a United flight has aborted its takeoff. They received a warning light in the cockpit as they were starting their takeoff roll. They hit the brakes, they come off the runway, they radio that they had this issue, and now there is an odor in the cabin. The United captain declares an emergency because the odor in the cabin, flight attendants were starting to complain it was making them sick. You hear the fire truck asked to clear runway 4.
Truck 1 company, cross 4 Delta.
They get permission to drive across the runway.
4 at Delta.
Seconds later, The controller realizes his mistake and tries to stop it.
Stop, truck one, stop. Stop, truck one, stop. Stop, truck one, stop.
So really fast, just a recap on that, because I think it was a bit of an extended explanation, but very detailed about what is that happened. There was one airplane apparently that was getting some fumes, so they sent that rescue truck to go and take care of that plane before it took off. The Air Canada flight was coming in, and that air traffic controller there told the truck to cross, made that mistake, realized he made that mistake, tried to stop it, but it was already too late. The airplane was headed right towards it. And as you heard from the beginning of that audio, he was speaking to another pilot there, and he said it was his fault. That is the air traffic controller. So more on these guests, because that's the first thing, again, folks always want to look into is how did it happen? What could have been done differently? But then now let's talk specifically about why this air traffic controller may have been there and may have been the only one dealing with this situation. Here's more from these folks over at CNN talking about the details of this accident.
And then you have to also consider the fact that there was a collision on the ground involving two planes at LaGuardia taxiing back on October 1st. There was the midair collision at Reagan National Airport back last January 29, 2025, when 67 people were killed. And this new reporting that we have coming out of anonymous reports by pilots, essentially sounding the warning call, saying that they felt like LaGuardia was so crowded, so at capacity, they thought it could be the next DCA. They thought it could be the next collision at Reagan National Airport.
The national airspace system as a whole is under stress. I mean, we look at our last government shutdown that actually did affect air traffic. It was 2 months or a month, a little over a month, where air traffic controllers weren't receiving any money. A lot of the controllers decided to quit. It was the largest number of controllers that were quitting per day. I think Sean Duffy had even said 15 to 20 per day over the normal 2 to 3. When I first got in to become an air traffic controller, they were at their lowest staffing levels then, and they've just never improved. So it's a serious issue that needs to be addressed.
I think that's a very big point here. It's that former air traffic controller that was speaking on CNN was talking about how, remember back last year, at least when this administration first came in, slashing and cutting everything, saying they're going to revamp everything with air traffic control. And then many folks ended up being, waived, fired, not paid, probably left the profession at a time. I don't know the details of how many people they lost or why they did, but they lost a lot of people when it came to air traffic control. And ever since then, as we always do, as we've been doing with this version of Donald Trump's administration, there's so many disasters, there's so many chaotic moments that happen. The news cycle moves on to the next thing and the next day, as we're literally experiencing right now when it comes to the 7 to 8 things that are devastatingly happening. So back when that happened with the air traffic controls and the shortage of folks that were there, he claims that it never got fully remedied. We still have a shortage. We still have overworked air traffic controllers. We still have singular guys trying to control this entire situation at somewhere like LaGuardia Airport. At least that's what's being said. I'm not sure the normalcies for folks at air traffic control to be controlling these things. But back to the CBS reporter and claiming, this was one guy, sounded like, speaking on this entire situation as this accident happened. Is it because they're still short-staffed?
After this accident, you continue to hear that same controller directing planes to gates. The airport is closed, trying to get airplanes off the tarmac. For a considerable amount of time, it's just this one voice.
Bell 2603, go around, runway heading 2000.
You even hear him tell a Frontier pilot that he messed up.
Frontier 4195, I got the word that we're going to be closed for a little while. If you want to prepare to return to the ramp, let me know.
Yeah, we got stuff in progress for that, man. That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
One of the questions from the NTSB will be, was he doing the job of one person, 2 people? Should there have been more people in that tower? Was staffing where it needed to be? Air traffic control staffing and workload was a factor in the DCA midair collision. It is something the NTSB is focused on over the last 14, 15 months, something that it looks like they're going to be having to consider again in yet another tragedy.
So the NTSB is going to have to investigate this. The NTSB has understood the shortages and how those have harmed these before. I'm not sure if there's an influx of more folks to be trained for these situations, or even if the NTSB got enough of a jump start on investigating this as soon as possible. Last clip over this entire story here, you guys. because as that CBS reporter pointed out, those investigators were supposed to come in and take care of the situation or investigate it to discover what has happened as quickly as possible. And as we've seen, all these things connected with our flying community and the system in the United States have been hindered because of all of the chaos. And that even affects the NTSB investigators coming in. Check this one out.
It certainly comes at a time when we're seeing just chaos in airports around the country.
This is kind of symptomatic of an aviation system that's really bursting at the seams. And we know that it's impacted the NTSB's work here. And we heard from NTSB Chair Hamadi saying
They can't
that
even get their people.
She had to beg to get their air traffic control specialist, key investigator on this, by the way. ATC is going to be a huge through line in this investigation to get her through security after she was waiting there for 3 hours.
So despite the fact that people like Tom Homan and Donald Trump said we're sending in ICE agents to help with TSA agents as they try and get people through security, and then they end up finding themselves actually leaning against walls, eating some pretzels, and attacking citizens, what is happening is people like those investigators were waiting in the same 3.5, 4 hour long lines and couldn't even make it to LaGuardia in a timely fashion to get into this investigation, which I'm sure these fascists don't care about that. Why would they want anyone to investigate an accident that happened on their watch and could potentially discover all the shortcomings and all of the shortfalls and all of the lack of planning and lack of support that any of these folks have gotten from this administration, who are hell-bent on taking our money, hoarding our money, starting wars, and attacking citizens? This is their objective. Take as much as possible, smash, grab, and steal and run. Why would they care about responsible investigations? And not that that's a plan, but when you've got chaos, chaos ensues. It's a very simple system. And when you only care about your white supremacy and your racism, what happens is all the rest of these things fall apart right around us. It's not a definitive conclusion. We'll see what the NTSB investigation has to say, or if it's hindered by this administration, similar to the way that they've hindered all kinds of investigations, have stopped them, have claimed that they're going to have them themselves, and then they limit folks from actually getting access to those investigations. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. And there's no reason to trust them, and if they say that they're not doing that again, it's almost like their MO. Thanks everyone for being here. We got more things happening. I did find the same stream you guys all find. I'm gonna like this one too, since we're right in the middle of smack dab in the middle of this hour. I've got 2 more major things happening that I want to discuss. We just might go over, considering I came in a little bit late. So I appreciate you guys being here again, those of you that may hang on, but we still have a solid 19 minutes. Maybe I can squeeze it all in. You never know. I should probably go ahead and get started so I can try to squeeze these last ones in. Donald Trump and his whole, it seems like half of his cabinet, maybe it was just all the folks that are surrounding him more directly, showed up in Memphis, Tennessee yesterday. And they sat at this round table to discuss how great they've been. It's weird that that's kind of all that Donald Trump does, to discuss how great he's been. But you know what? He always needs a little bit of help. So he asked for a little bit of help from one of his major lackeys, Kash Patel. So here's that moment of, I guess, our American taxpayer dollars hard at work to kiss Donald Trump's ass. Kash Patel was happy to do it, though.
Not only for generations, but for centuries to come. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you, Steve. So, Kash, see if you can top that. I don't know. That's a tough one, Kash.
That is tough. You know, Mr. President, as I look around this venue, I see, and I'm reminded again, why we have the greatest warriors on God's green earth, the men and women serving in uniform, the men and women serving and wearing the badge, and law enforcement, our police, our sheriffs around the state of Tennessee. I'm reminded that Americans exist to protect this country day in and day out, and they've done it like we've done it here. But what we didn't have was you. We didn't have a commander-in-chief who backed the blue, who resourced the blue, who funded the military, who did whatever it takes to safeguard every single life. And here in Memphis, Tennessee, you have put on a show for the world. You have allowed us to go out there and capture gangbangers, rapists, murderers, drug dealers at record historic levels. And for me, a first-generation Indian-American kid whose parents fled a genocide in East Africa to become the 9th director of the FBI, I'm living the wildest dream you could possibly imagine, sir. But it's thanks to you.
Get up, bro. Get up. Get off your knees. Put the knee pads away. Just stand up, like you're an adult, and maybe speak to the guy. It's what he requires of his cabinet. It's what he requires of the director of the FBI. How embarrassing is that? Bro, you're the director of the FBI. You're living your dreams of being the director of the FBI as your actual job is to walk around behind Donald Trump and do everything he tells you to do. And while at the same time praising him for allowing you to do everything he demands of you to do. It's almost like, as I mentioned before, he previewed this. This is Donald Trump from like back before his first term or right when he first got into office, talking about the kind of cabinet that he would like to have in comparison to one Kim Jong-un.
Are we close to seeing Mr. Kim here at the White House?
Could happen. I mean,
they talked about that yesterday.
I think it's something that could happen. Yeah. Hey, he's the head of a country, and I mean, he is the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different.
Right.
He speaks and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
Well,
he's got his people to do the same. It just took him to his second term to fully get it. He got it partially in his first term. It was just as disgusting, but the difference is now is these guys have to grovel and compete. You see like the gladiator style competition that Donald Trump was setting up? Oh, I tell you what, Cash, you really got to work on this, man. Stephen Miller, man, he licked my anus clean. You're gonna have to try and figure somehow to top that. So let's let Kash Patel finish topping what it is that Stephen Miller was doing. That is in front of everyone, as if it's not completely and utterly embarrassing. Here's the second half of Kash Patel's the day he had.
But more importantly, what I see when I look out across our great partners here in the interagency and our great legislatures and our great prosecutors and our great attorney general who has the guts to go out there and make arrests, turn them into prosecutions and put people in prison, you are giving that dream to every single child in the state of Tennessee. You are inspiring the nation and law enforcement to come up and wear the badge and wear the colors of this country and safeguard our men and women for generations to come. This is an enduring mission, Mr. President, because you have made it enduring. It is going to go on for generations to come. They are going to try to achieve what you accomplished here, what Stephen said, in just one short year, and they're going to be doing it for decades because America was smart enough to elect you as our commander-in-chief. So while we're out there fighting for the dreams of our children, just know, Mr. President, how many millions of dreams like mine are going to be lived thanks to your brilliant leadership. Mr. President, thanks for delivering America the safest country on God's green earth.
Thank you very much.
These are grown-ass men and women. These are folks with families. These are folks, some of them with children, bro, and they have to go there every day to sit there and bang on a desk like Kash Patel was just doing to demand and talk about how wonderful old-ass fascist Donald Trump is. That's your job. But at the same time, he wants to discuss how they've taken rapists and murderers off the streets. And while their president puts rapists and murderers back on the streets, and actually protects pedophiles from being discovered. That's the work that Kash Patel, in saying his lifelong childhood dreams have been given to him by Donald Trump to help him protect pedophiles, because it's pretty obvious that his job has been in protecting pedophiles, because every time he's asked about the ways that they could maybe bust some of these pedophiles, what Kash Patel does is he does what Donald Trump tells him to do, which is do nothing about that.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay.
Well, why hasn't Kash Patel been brought up on charges for lying under oath? I mean, because we've seen from the same files that they were very reluctant to release that that's a lie. All of those victims of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were only trafficked to them. It's weird because the president was listed in those files more times than anyone else, like, thousands of times. But somehow Kash Patel's living his dream of protecting those pedophiles. You know what? This is a really fast thing, though. Since the competition was on, since Kash Patel had to somehow top all of those words that Stephen Miller said, I was curious about some of the words that Stephen Miller said. I said, that must have been like one hell of an ass-kissing session coming over from, Stephen Miller's side of the table. So here's just a small beginning of what it is that Kash Patel had to compete with. Here you go, Stephen. Here's your time.
Thank you. Well, first and most importantly, thank you to President Trump, whose vision and courage and determination has achieved something that if you had predicted it 15 months ago, people would have said it was impossible. If you had said 15 months ago that we would achieve the lowest national murder rate, not in 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40, but in the 125 years, nobody would have believed it possible. And President Trump did exactly that, and it is a miracle.
Miracles. Donald Trump works miracles. I want you guys to understand the language that's being tossed around here. Understand the first off, the misleading claim that, oh, the lowest crime rate ever is only because of Donald Trump jailing people, not because of cities doing work, not because of community types of work, not because if you actually look into any kind of articles about lower crime rate, it's been going down for 3 straight years, partially because of response and the way that the world has changed since the COVID outbreak. Donald Trump oversaw and saw tons of people die at too. If you actually want to know the reality behind that, just look at a couple of few articles about it. It all gets explained. But that's not what these fascists do. Fascists have this job, and they're surrounding fascists. Their job is to promote the king. Here's the second part of what Stephen Miller was doing to really place himself high on that mantle.
President Trump and said, I want you to help make Memphis safe, although I bet the governor would agree. He could never have imagined this safe, this quickly, this many people behind bars. And let's just remember that because of the work that President Trump is doing, not only in Memphis, not only in Washington, D.C., but all over the country, ultimately, it will save and is saving tens of thousands of American lives. It is, I'll use that word again, what President Trump has done on border security and public safety is a national miracle that will be studied not only for generations, but for centuries to come. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you, Steve.
President Trump.
That's the part that led him to go lean over to Kash and be like, Kash, you got a lot. You have a lot to make up for here. You really have to top that one, bro. You notice he used the word miracle again, as he pointed out. I'm going to say it again, a miracle. Maybe he ran out of the right words to use for actually what this is. Because the American people understand actually what they're experiencing versus what it is that these folks in the Golden Towers are actually seeing. Because what we also saw, by the way, was Donald Trump sitting there waiting for people to praise him. It was the only time apparently that he was awake, because when people were actually talking about maybe what they were talking about with keeping America safe and crime rates going down, the snoozer started, snoozing.
Offenses or deadly accidents. Our work, however, has not just been about arrests and the seizure of illegal firearms and narcotics. Our Tennessee National Guard partners have made a significant impact while serving on the task force by administering several life-saving doses of Narcan to overdose victims, chasing down and detaining a fleeing murder suspect on Christmas Day, and providing offense.
Details about how whatever cities and states are doing to lower crime rates, he's not interested in. If it's not talking about how great he is, if it's not talking about how much of a miracle he has been on crime rates, if it's not talking about how he's given Kash Patel this opportunity to kiss his ass as many times as possible, Donald Trump is sleeping. That's how much he actually cares about things. If we paid attention to reality, we would know that this guy sleeps a lot. He also doesn't pay attention to any briefings, something else we discovered in 2015. And that he's very easily bribed if you rub him under his chin and say you like him, and he'll do anything you want. I mean, that's for foreign leaders and people with money that have bought his ass off. That's usually how that works. But if someone's actually talking about something detailed, he could not care less about it. What he cares about is being praised. He's a demented old man. It's about time we do something about it. It's tiring that we have to keep seeing it. So whatever. I apologize for giving it to you, but as I've said before, my misery enjoys just a little bit of company. So let's move on. Last here story, as we're talking the destruction of this country, as we're talking this war that we continue to go down. I'm saving the war talk for the back end. It tends to, dominate the conversation. I don't want that to keep happening. But I do want to point out Mike Waltz, for some reason, sat at this like town hall on CNN. I don't know why he agreed to do this, especially since there was this one college student who stood up and asked him a very, very simple question about this here war that Donald Trump has led us into and is taking our taxpayer dollars to fight. Mike Waltz has to come up with an answer to this very, very simple question.
I want to turn to Santiago Porras Ruiz. He is a full-time college student who also works as a waiter here in New York and active in local Democratic politics. Santiago?
Hi, good evening. I'm a waiter at a local restaurant in Queens, a full-time college student who sleeps an average of 4 hours at night and is still thousands in debt. How is a war in a country half the world away, funded by the taxes pulled from my check, helping me in any way?
Yeah, it's look, it's a valid and it's a tough question. I know for certain, and if we just look at the things the president has put in place in terms of housing and big corporations that are buying up whole neighborhoods, the tax cuts that he extended with the big beautiful bill, the energy policies that we're putting in place to not only make us self-sufficient, but to lessen these dependencies and lower prices, even lowering prescription drug prices. The president's absolutely focused on what you're seeing day in and day out that's affecting your pocketbook.
Mike Waltz said housing tax cuts from the big bill, which, by the way, is a big tax cut for rich folks. He's lying there. Energy policies, lower prices, prescription drug prices. None of those things are happening in any kind of decent way for, again, this college student who works some kind of waiter job and sleeps 4 hours a night and is still trying to figure out, yo, you're taking money out of my paycheck in order to send it over to fight this war. So what the hell does that have to do with my life? I mean, I guess he was warming up to try and figure some way to lie to this kid. So he finally found the lie on the back end of this ridiculous answer.
At the same time, as commander-in-chief, he has to weigh the risks and make the tough decisions, facing some hard truths. We cannot have a world with a genocidal terroristic regime that holds not only your generation, but the next generation hostage with nuclear weapons. And, those are the tough calls that the American people elected him to make. And I can tell you, having worked very closely with him, he doesn't back off his red lines and he doesn't enter us into bad deals. But those are tough decisions, no doubt. And I know they're top of mind for the entire administration.
Hold on. So whenever you hear a MAGA person, especially in this administration, say things like, there's going to be some tough decisions. The only tough part of these decisions are the consequences that come on regular Americans. What kind of tough decisions is Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and the rest of these guys actually experiencing from his decision to do this? What tough decisions is he going through, considering you've got Gold Star families visiting and seeing that their children and their family members coming home in caskets? What tough decisions is this guy dealing with, as they keep saying, you're going to have to deal with some tough decisions as gas prices skyrocket and energy costs go up? And then it's also as farmers are dealing with fertilizer issues as this war continues on. Who is paying for these tough decisions? Not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is celebrating. Donald Trump is going on golfing trips every weekend. And by the way, the bad part of that back end of that answer is somehow we've gone back to these nuclear weapons that they said they got rid of in June. That is until they decided to invade again and say there's more nuclear weapons. Like, these Iranian leaders are, man, they're magical. I tell you what, Steve Miller talked about miracles. The miracle is that they keep developing nuclear weapons out of nowhere. But if you listen to people that were inside this administration, one in particular who quit over this war, they'll tell you, they reveal to you now, these were all lies in the first place.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. So the Iranians' position when viewed from the lens of the region was actually fairly pragmatic. They were preventing, themselves from developing a bomb, but they still wanted the ability. They wanted the ability to enrich. They wanted the ability to have some components so that they weren't completely stripped of it. And when we always assessed that they were either several months or a year, 2 years away from actually being able to develop a nuclear weapon. And that's not because the Iranians are stupid people. I think we can tell right now that the Iranians are anything but stupid. They had the ability, I think, that the brain power to actually develop one, or they could have simply traded a ton of oil with Pakistan or someone else to actually get a nuclear weapon. They were not doing that. We had no intelligence to indicate that they were.
It's sad how reality keeps popping up and we just keep ignoring it. As Joe Kent, as we've heard about lately, he left the administration working in the intelligence, counterterrorism areas. And now he's, public enemy number one for the Trump administration for saying those small truths. But don't forget the back end also, the last two things that Mike Waltz, who, by the way, was the guy who was kicked out or demoted from after Signal, the classified information chats that they had at the beginning of this administration. Since he's answering questions about how it was Iran's nuclear weapons, and also we care about it so much. He said it's at top of mind. I feel like these administration officials need to start getting their stories straight, because one of them pointed out that, it wasn't Iran nuclear weapons. And this other one pointed out that the whole thing about consumers and paying more is absolutely not at top of mind. Here's Kevin Hassett.
But the fact is that the U.S. economy is fundamentally sound, and that if it were to be extended, it wouldn't really disrupt the U.S. economy very much at all. It would hurt consumers, and we'd have to think about, if that continued, what we would have to do about that. But that's like really the last of our concerns right now, because we're very confident that this thing is going ahead of schedule.
Okay.
But the fact is,
not concerned. We're not concerned about it. We don't really care, bro. Why would we care about what's going on with you guys? We're making tough decisions that apparently are only tough for you. And as we count our money and then spread it around to more of the oligarchs that have paid us off to, take from you. It's what the American people voted for. It's what they keep saying. I wonder how long before we decide to stop listening to that garbage. But still, since the pressure's on, as I've been pointing out recently, and things continue to get worse. Oh, and as he's also begging for help for folks to, help him end the disaster that he got himself into, what's going on now is, and I think this is what's happening bouncing around in the back of his brain. Okay, I've been trying to make sure that I push all of these responsibilities off on someone else. Who can I throw under the bus? Says the old man in between his naps.
And then unfortunately, I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people. And I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror. And they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. So we are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit, the night before that. And then
when have you ever heard someone who's actually, as they say, this guy's completely in charge of this war and decisions about what's happening, tell you the conversations are happened overnight, maybe the day before, maybe half a day before that? How would he not know when conversations had begun when he's talking about these rigorous, very stressful, detailed conversations about ending this conflict? How is it he doesn't know when they started? Or he gives you a roundabout ballpark number. I find these little instances of when you can tell when someone's lying their ass off, when he just tells these random ballpark stories of, I guess, around Sunday night, maybe Saturday night to Sunday morning is about the time the talks began happening. He doesn't know what he's talking about because none of those things are happening, at least at the point when he's talking here. I'm not sure if they're discussing things now. I'm not sure what it is that they could even discuss. Because as I also showed you guys earlier, Donald Trump was falling asleep at this very same event in Memphis, Tennessee. This was just funny to me. Stephen Miller, as I also showed, was at that same event. And when someone was talking about, or at least Donald Trump here, was talking about trying to sell this war that nobody's buying, I feel like Stephen Miller was a little bit exhausted. Maybe he was stressed out by all of these lies that they keep telling.
Iran's missile capabilities were also growing so fast that it would soon have become virtually impossible to stop them. Once they have a missile, once they have what they were building.
Here, let's watch that again. Watch the exhaustion on this loser's face.
Iran's missile capabilities were also growing so fast that it would soon have become virtually impossible to stop them. Once they have a missile, once they have what they were building.
Man, such a deep breath from this, master of propaganda, Stephen Miller, sitting at the edge of the table, and Donald Trump's trying to sell this war. And are you tired, Stephen? Are you tired of the lies? Are you stressed out that people aren't buying them? It's one of these things. Or you know what? I'm just over here speculating. It could very simply have been he had a lunch at Taco Bell, and man, that chili cheese burrito, or maybe the double-decker taco. But maybe it's the Doritos Locos taco, along with the Doritos Locos fries that are really fucking his stomach up. And he's like, ooh, this guy keeps talking. Ooh, I can't shit myself the way that he does. Ooh. It did kind of look like that, right? It looked like maybe that's the possibility. We should dispel these rumors and let everyone actually know what it is that happened there. Stephen Miller was going through it. Maybe his bowels were going through it. Anyways, he was competing with Donald Trump, I guess. Again, he was competing with Kash Patel, and now he's competing with Donald Trump on who could get the nastiest stench in their pants. Maybe that's what he was doing. These nasty motherfuckers. Okay, sorry guys. It's the top of the hour. I'm sure some of you guys have taken already for TDR. I wish you hadn't. If you had, because the Stephen Miller part I thought was pretty good. I do have one last half of this though. Again, more on the pushing of this war. Do you guys know these things are progressing? These things keep on pushing down, and there continues to be these catalysts in this movement. These folks who keep going on Fox News and screaming about how much more war that they want. I feel like you guys kind of know where I'm going with this. And if you haven't seen so far, one of the major players behind all of this barking and hoping for more war and more bloodshed and destruction of people's lives because he thinks that they're lesser than him, of course, is Lindsey Graham. He's a crazy guy.
They're running out of money. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine.
Is this going to, though, take Carg Island? Is it going to involve U.S. troops on the ground? Let me just read you something from The Atlantic. Does an assessment on that. They say U.S. troops may well take Carg Island. We believe their ability to do so, but only to endure ballistic missile strikes, drone attacks, petrochemical smoke, all without a reliable means of obtaining logistical support. The result could be a grinding war of attrition. They talk about how far away they would be from resupply.
I'm sort of tired of all this armchair quarterback, and this has been an amazing military operation. God bless the fallen.
But it's a difference when we talk about troops on the ground.
I trust the Marines, not that guy. I trust DOD. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this. The Marines, my money is always on the Marines.
Armchair quarterbacking that he doesn't want to hear. When someone gives some details, when someone gives Lindsey Graham details of why his call for folks to be sent for boots on the ground, and he believes in the Marines to go in there and take Carg Island, as he keeps spouting all of this, he's not sacrificing anything. In fact, he said he's going to ask for more of the sons and daughters of South Carolina, which he's supposed to be representing, to go off to war. He keeps talking all this big game while his ass sits in cozy Fox News studios and screams about more bloodshed. How is it that people can listen to Lindsey Graham and then not go, what? Iwo Jima? We did it in Iwo Jima? I'm not the only person who caught wind of that point that he was trying to make. Jack Posobiec, that guy with the super MAGA guy, the one who was hanging out all the time with Charlie Kirk, the one who kisses Donald Trump's ass as many times as possible, was responding to Lindsey Graham and his call for more boots on the ground in Iran. He said 40% casualty rate, over 80% for some units. I believe he's talking about our situation and what happened with Iwo Jima, because that's apparently the calling card. That's the selling point that Lindsey Graham had in this declaration for boots on the ground in Iran. Here, someone else responded. This is a columnist for New York Times. Is this going the wrong one? Hold on, let's stop this. Columnist over at New York Times even said this. in response to this very blatant call for more folks on the ground. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring this guy back up because I like what he said. So again, he points out Iwo Jima. Let's switch it. There it is. And he says, there were 26,000 American casualties at Iwo Jima. So is this supposed to be selling to folks? Is this supposed to be something that, people are supposed to be on board for? Because he even got his fellow, I guess, elected leader, not necessarily senator. This guy's a representative, Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett wasn't even buying it. And Tim Burchett buys most everything that MAGA sells him. And he also said we lost 7,000 Marines and 20,000 were wounded. Everyone is jumping on this Iwo Jima line that Lindsey Graham thinks is going to somehow sell more folks. But the only person he needs to sell it on is the guy in the White House. So it seems he could probably sell it to him as long as he scratches him under his chin and says, I love you, Donald. As a matter of fact, I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. But you know what I noticed? Maybe because I'm petty and maybe because I really, really dislike Tim Burchett. But Tim Burchett chimed in there. And I thought, you know what? I doubt Tim Burchett has been vocally and utterly against this war. I doubt it. So I decided to look it up a little bit. Tim Burchett, who pushed back against Lindsey Graham's desire to put boots on the ground, which I'm sure Tim Burchett pretty soon will be down to put boots on the ground. He responded and was upset about the Iwo Jima line. But once I looked back a little bit further, Tim Burchett was asked about this Iran war and the potential for going in. And he said things that were all over the place.
I was going to ask, what do you say to MAGA voters who are concerned right now about another forever war, about Americans who are dying overseas and are being told to expect more casualties?
I would say stay concerned. I mean, be concerned, be vigilant, hold our feet to the fire, keep us honest on that issue.
Even when it comes to Trump's decisions on this?
Absolutely, man. Nobody's above your reproach. Just don't tell the president I said that.
Tim Burchett in a nutshell. He's willing to say things that, hey, I think you reporters, I think the American people should hold all of our feet to the fire, keep the pressure on us, especially when it comes to starting wars, right? That is, don't tell Donald Trump that I said that because I'm afraid of him. No, listen, no, you guys want me to play it again? do I have to point out again? No, he came out against the war, right? I mean, in a way, or at least the way people should continue to hold them responsible for the decisions that they make. It's what he said. But at the back end, who he really cares about not pissing off is the old guy in the White House. Here it is again.
I was going to ask, what do you say to MAGA voters who are concerned right now about another forever war, about Americans who are dying overseas and are being told to expect more casualties?
I would say stay concerned. I mean, be concerned, be vigilant, hold our feet to the fire, keep us honest on that issue.
Even when it comes to Trump's decisions on this?
Absolutely, man. Nobody's above your reproach. Just don't tell the president I said that.
I don't know. I guess he'll write it off as a joke, considering it's going to be impossible to not tell the president you said that when you said it on camera. Who knows? But the main purpose here is this is the mindset. This is how these folks think. They all actually have their own thoughts. Lindsey Graham used to hate Donald Trump, said that if he gets into power, that's going to destroy the country and their party. All these folks came out hardcore against Donald Trump, but they find a way to be so afraid of him, his hobbling ass everywhere he moves, that anything they say, they have to wonder if Donald Trump is listening and if Donald Trump's going to do something about it. But it gets even worse for Burchett, the same guy who was coming out against Lindsey Graham's desire to put boots on the ground. Because this also happened. This is earlier. This is in January, over the potential for us going into this war. Because again, we went into this war late February, I believe the very last day of February. So he had an opportunity to think about this beforehand. Let's see where Tim Burchett landed on the Iran war before it was the Iran war.
What do you see as President Trump's next concrete step toward Iran?
I hope we shut those evil bastards down. They're killing people, and we're getting reports 5,000. It's probably 20,000 folks. You just never know. I mean, it's an evil regime, and they oppress people. They treat women like cattle. Throw gay folks off of buildings. We don't have anything to do with them. We need to shut them down economically, and then if that doesn't work, maybe other options on the table.
Maybe other options should be on the table. What are the options, Tim? What other options should be on the table? Because as you saw him break down there, there's many things to dislike about this, the leadership, the regime there that's killing citizens, that's killing Iranian citizens that came out to protest. So I hear you on all that, Tim. But there was something that stuck out to me on the end of his answer. He's upset. and he said they treat the women like cattle, throw gay folks off of buildings. So is Tim Burchett now looking to protect the rights and lives of the LGBTQ plus community? Do you think he is, or do you think he's just finding new ways to find some kind of comfort in this upcoming Iran war? Because I got another clip from old Tim. Since Tim cares so much about gay folks, what do you think he had to say about gay folks here when it came to how we should be in this war and also the leadership of our military? Listen closely.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. A lot of talk over what's going on in Iran. The main talk at first was whether President Trump had the ability or approval to do that. Of course, if he went to Congress, they would leak it. Those people, a lot of members of Congress, a lot of Democrats hate. It's hard to decide who they hate more. Is it Trump or is our country? So there's really a lot going on. I think the main thing you got to realize, and the world realizes, is our military is not being run by a bunch of men in dresses anymore. We've got real men and real women that are fighting, that are flying, that are launching missiles, etc. So, in my opinion, I think Trump just prevented a war. He's not starting a war.
You always got to finish with the ass kissing, because that's what fascist leaders demand of their minions like Tim Burchett. But he talked about how the Iranian regime was throwing gay people off of buildings. But at the same time, apparently we have to demean gay folks yet again, and talk about how our military is no longer led by men in dresses. It's almost like we also have this American conservative Christian regime, which does the same things, has the same mindsets as these other regimes do towards disenfranchised communities that they think are just, I guess they shouldn't exist. But Tim Burchett wants to fight this war. That is before, right after saying that he doesn't want to fight this war, as long as you don't tell Donald Trump that he's against it. What a coward this guy is. What a coward. And I'll point out again, he's the same coward that refused to do anything about the school shooting that happened in his district in Tennessee at that Christian school when a shooter ran up in there and killed little children, and he didn't give a damn. That's the same guy. They're all hypocrites, man. So he's in the same boat as Lindsey Graham, even though he wants to have some kind of a response to him to make himself look decent for a second. It's just not going to work. I'm tired of these guys. Anyways, that's it, you guys. I'm over by a few minutes. Those of you that hung around, I appreciate you. As usual, we've got tons happening yet again on another Wednesday. Hopefully things go off without a hitch. I wanted to say one other thing, though. This is what I wanted to come in early to talk about. I'm starting to try and stretch this stream to other places, also to be over on Twitch. If you guys prefer Twitch, maybe it'll be there. Maybe the chat is different in that particular realm. Let's spread a little bit of this watch party that we get every day. I think it's a fun time. So again, tomorrow I'm going to try that. Maybe even later today, I'm going to try a little test run where it can stretch to both YouTube and Twitch. So the few of you guys that hung around past the top of the hour, maybe spread the word a little bit. If you guys like Twitch, if you prefer it, it'll be over as a JR rated page I have there. We haven't been able to put together a watch list page there yet, but it'll be there for the simulcast, I think is what they used to call it back in the day. If you guys would like to check it out there, let's see if we can get it going. Look for a test potentially also today in both of those places. Maybe that's where my issues came from. I'm getting a little bit too, trying to get too far with things. So thanks again, you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Tuesday, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for yet another watch party. See you later. See you tomorrow.